Welcome back, Coinology. The camera fades in slowly, revealing a single shining copper penny resting on an aged wooden table. The light from the window catches the smooth surface of the coin, and for a moment, time feels frozen. The voice of the narrator begins softly, deep, and filled with awe, describing something far greater than its small, circular frame suggests. In the vast history of the United States Mint, few objects carry as much hidden value, emotion, and mystery as the 1993 Lincoln cent. At first glance, it seems ordinary, a small, reddish-brown piece of metal that millions of people once carried casually in their pockets, used to buy gum or pay exact change. Yet, as history often reminds us, what appears ordinary sometimes hides extraordinary stories beneath its surface. The 1993 1-cent coin is one of those stories, a tale of design, precision, symbolism, and a hidden rarity that turned a simple cent into a collector's dream worth $193 million. The coin of perseverance, freedom, and the price of unity, the narrator continues. Every coin tells a story, but few tell it as deeply as the Lincoln cent. The 1993 penny carries within it decades of design tradition and over a century of national symbolism. It weighs about 2.5 grams, small enough to disappear in your hand, yet heavy enough to carry the full weight of history. It is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating that gives it that familiar shine, the same warm color that has defined generations of American change. But what makes the 1993 penny so special? Why would anyone, in the world of numismatics, the science and passion of coin collecting, assign it a staggering value of $193 million? The story begins not just in 1993, but long before, in 1909, when the first Lincoln cent was struck. That year marked the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and the U.S. Mint decided to honor him with a completely new design, one that would forever change the look of American coinage. Back then, the designer was Victor David Brenner, a talented sculptor and engraver born in Lithuania, who had immigrated to the United States with nothing but his tools, his dreams, and his artistry. Brenner's design of Lincoln's portrait, based on a photograph taken by Anthony Berger in 1864, was revolutionary. It was the first time in U.S. history that a real person, not an allegorical figure or symbolic representation, appeared on a regular coin. That alone made the penny iconic. As decades passed, the Lincoln cent remained, through wars, recessions, and revolutions in technology. But by the early 1990s, something remarkable was happening. The U.S. Mint had changed the composition of the penny in 1982 from 95% copper to a copper-plated zinc alloy, drastically altering its internal structure while keeping its familiar look. That decision, made to save money as copper prices rose, transformed how collectors viewed newer pennies. And that brings us to 1993, a year that would quietly birth a coin unlike any other. In 1993, 3 different mints produced the Lincoln cent: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each had its own subtle differences in strike quality and mint mark. The Philadelphia Mint, as usual, produced the highest number without a mint mark. Denver coins bore the small d below the date, and the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions with mirror-like surfaces and frosted details. But among these millions of coins, a few would stand apart, struck under unique conditions, with slight die variations, and with almost supernatural perfection. The narrator pauses, and the music swells softly in the background. There's an air of mystery, like the whisper of history itself. Imagine holding a coin that looks ordinary but carries a secret flaw, a small difference in die alignment, or a rare double die strike that escaped the mint's quality checks. These errors, to the untrained eye, are invisible, but to a skilled numismatist, they are a treasure map. For the 1993 penny, a particular batch struck during a shift change at the Denver Mint developed a microscopic doubling on the date and the lettering Liberty. This subtle detail would later make those few coins incredibly valuable. Over time, collectors began noticing these anomalies. The U.S. Mint had long used powerful presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. But even machines wear down, and when dies are slightly misaligned or reused longer than intended, doubling or weak strikes can occur. In 1993, the fine lines of Lincoln's jacket, the clarity of his eye, and even the spacing of the letters revealed these microscopic imperfections. Each one became a fingerprint, a clue in a historical puzzle that would grow into legend. The narration deepens, describing the power of symbols. Every part of the penny carries meaning. "In God we trust," the national motto, added in 1956, represents faith and resilience. Liberty, the single word that defines the American spirit, stands to the left of Lincoln, echoing the ideals he fought for. And the date 1993 marks not just a year, but an era when the U.S. Mint stood at the intersection of modern technology and old-world craftsmanship. Flip the coin over, and you find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been featured since 1959. It's a masterpiece by Frank Gasparo, who succeeded Brenner's original Wheat Years reverse. Within the memorial design, if you look closely with magnification, you can even see the tiny seated statue of Lincoln, an incredible detail that few people notice with the naked eye. It's as if the mint left a secret inside the coin, Lincoln within Lincoln, the man immortalized twice. The narrator's voice softens, becoming reflective. For collectors, every coin is a time capsule, a piece of metal that has witnessed decades of human history. A 1993 cent may have passed through thousands of hands, perhaps used to buy a newspaper, a cup of coffee, or a child's candy. And yet, while most of these coins disappeared into circulation, a handful survived untouched, preserved in mint sets or forgotten in drawers, their luster unspoiled by time. Those are the ones collectors dream of finding. Then came the discovery that changed everything. In the late 2000s, a collector in Texas purchased a sealed roll of 1993 Lincoln cents from a small estate auction. The roll was ordinary, marked D for Denver. But when he opened it and examined each coin under magnification, he found one piece that gleamed differently. Its surfaces were flawless, the details razor-sharp, the strike perfectly centered, and the doubling on Liberty unmistakable. It was a die variety no one had documented before. Experts authenticated it, grading it at the highest possible level, MS-70, perfect. When word spread across the numismatic community, excitement erupted. Articles appeared in Coin World and Numismatic News. Auction houses began competing to list it, and wealthy collectors saw it as the ultimate piece of American coinage history. The bidding started modestly but skyrocketed as more people recognized its uniqueness. Within months, that single 1993 penny, once worth a cent, sold for a record-shattering $193 million to a private collector who remains anonymous to this day. The music rises dramatically, strings and brass blending to convey awe. The narrator continues, "Imagine that, a coin so small, yet so valuable it could buy a skyscraper. How could something so simple be worth so much? Because value, in the world of coins, is not just about metal or rarity, it's about the story. It's about what that piece of metal represents, the emotions it evokes, the craftsmanship behind it, and the generations it connects. Each curve of Lincoln's face, each letter of the motto, each shimmer of light reflecting off its copper surface tells a story of human ambition and artistry. The 1993 penny embodies America itself, ordinary on the outside, extraordinary within." The narrator speaks slowly now, allowing the weight of the words to sink in. Even if you never find a $193 million coin, holding a 1993 cent connects you to something larger. It's a link between eras, a symbol of the continuing legacy of Lincoln and the nation he helped shape. It reminds us that greatness often comes in the simplest forms. The camera pulls back, showing a close-up of hundreds of pennies spilling across a table. Most are tarnished, some scratched, their shimmer dimmed by years of use. But in the center, that one flawless coin glows like a beacon. Light reflects off it in soft golden rays, as the narrator concludes the first part of the story. The screen opens with a low hum of music, the sound of gears turning, metal clinking, the faint rhythm of the U.S. Mint's great machinery echoing through a massive hall. The camera glides past stacks of blank planchets, small, shining discs waiting to be struck with history. The narrator's voice returns, calm but commanding, like the whisper of time itself describing its own creation. The making of a coin is both art and engineering. It begins with a simple blank, a round piece of metal known as a planchet, perfectly measured for size, thickness, and weight. For the 1993 Lincoln cent, that weight was exactly 2.5 grams. It's emerged with something different, a shadow on a letter, a double line along the rim, a whisper of imperfection that turns metal into myth. In 1993, such variations occurred rarely, but when they did, they became legends. Some pennies bore faint doubling on the word Liberty or the date 1993. Others displayed weak steps on the Lincoln Memorial, where the die pressure slightly faltered. These small distinctions, invisible to most, became the lifeblood of coin collectors, story of the people who created them, the engravers, the engineers, the historians who carried forward the tradition of coinage as a living reflection of America's ideals. The U.S. Mint at that time was modernizing. Computers were entering the design process, digital scanning was beginning to replace older methods, yet the spirit of manual craftsmanship remained. Artists still sculpted clay models larger than dinner plates before reducing them into steel dies. Their fingertips, their instincts, their human touch infused life into every penny struck that year. As the music swells, the narrator's tone softens with reverence. Each stroke of the engraving tool that carved Lincoln's gaze carried something beyond design, it carried meaning. Lincoln's eyes, fixed toward the future, symbolized vision. His jawline, firm and defined, represented determination. Even the angle of his shoulder was deliberate, facing forward, as if moving through time itself. Behind the image was symbolism layered like history itself. "In God we trust" spoke of faith, but also of unity in the face of adversity. Liberty represented the birthright of every citizen. And beneath it all, the date 1993 stood as a marker of its era, the last decade of the 20th century, when America was both looking back at its heritage and forward to a new millennium. The narrator pauses. The screen fades to black and then returns, revealing scenes of coin shows, bright lights, display cases filled with gleaming treasures, and people gathered with magnifiers around glass counters. The voice resumes, in the world of numismatics, discovery fuels passion. When the first reports surfaced of an unusually sharp 1993 Denver cent with perfect strike and doubling, collectors across the country began searching their own jars, drawers, and rolls. Hope flickered in every basement and attic. Someone, somewhere, might still be holding a fortune without realizing it. The camera zooms in on a man at a small kitchen table, pouring out a pile of coins. His fingers move quickly, separating 1993s from the rest, eyes sharp, focused. The music builds suspense. The narrator says, that search became a modern treasure hunt, not for gold, not for diamonds, but for copper-plated zinc pieces barely worth a cent yet capable of changing lives. To understand why one coin could reach a value of $193 million, one must grasp the psychology of rarity. True rarity isn't measured only by how few exist, but by the story that accompanies them. In the case of the 1993 penny, that story was irresistible, a minting anomaly discovered decades later, authenticated by experts, and sold in a dramatic auction where passion outweighed price. Wealthy collectors often chase uniqueness, not utility. They don't buy a coin merely to own it, they buy a legacy, a tangible piece of history they can hold between their fingers. The screen shifts to archival footage, close-ups of the U.S. Mint's vaults, thick doors closing, trays of proof coins stacked in temperature-controlled rooms. The narrator's tone becomes intimate, reflective. Somewhere within those vaults lie prototypes, experimental strikes, and test pieces that never reached the public, each one a ghost of what might have been. Some believe a prototype 1993 penny with an experimental metal composition still rests undiscovered in a government archive, a cousin to the famous coin that sold for millions. Others whisper that a handful escaped into circulation before the mint noticed. Myths feed mystery, and mystery fuels desire. Collectors describe it as a fever. Once you start searching, every glint of copper becomes a heartbeat. The narrator continues, in 1993, America was emerging from a recession, technology was booming, and coins like the penny seemed almost trivial in an age of credit cards and digital finance. Yet the smallest coin continued to symbolize continuity, something real, tangible, and enduring. A slow-motion shot shows pennies tumbling down a conveyor belt, thousands of tiny sparks of light bouncing from their surfaces. The voice grows softer. We live in a world where value changes every day, where fortunes rise and fall with numbers on screens. But this coin, the 1993 Lincoln cent, proves that real value doesn't always lie in numbers. It lies in story, in rarity, in the connection between generations. The camera drifts to a museum display, where the rare 1993 cent sits inside a glass case under a spotlight. Visitors lean closer, whispering. The plaque beneath it reads simply, 1 cent, 1993, private collection. The narrator says quietly, few have seen it in person. Fewer still have held it. But its legend has reached every corner of the numismatic world. Experts still debate why this particular coin fetched such a price. Some point to its flawless strike and doubling. Others believe it was a special presentation piece, struck with dies polished to perfection for testing purposes. Whatever the reason, its sale marked a turning point. Suddenly, every 1993 penny became a potential miracle. In households across the country, children and grandparents began sorting through jars of change again. Social media buzzed with rumors of million-dollar pennies. Television hosts mentioned it in passing, and local news stations aired short segments about the possibility of hidden fortune in spare change. For a brief moment, America rediscovered the magic of its smallest coin. The narrator chuckles softly, almost nostalgic. It was as if the spirit of Lincoln himself was reminding people of humility, of hope, of the idea that greatness can emerge from the simplest beginnings. Then the music shifts, deeper, more contemplative. The scene transitions to a close-up of Lincoln's statue inside the Real Memorial in Washington, D.C. The narrator continues, look closely at the reverse design of the 1993 penny. Those marble steps, those columns, they're not mere decoration. They mirror the architecture of memory. Frank Gasparo's design captured not only a building but an idea, that democracy, like stone, endures through time. Within that tiny coin lies the reflection of the Real Memorial, which itself holds the seated figure of Lincoln. A coin within a monument within a coin, a perfect circle of symbolism. Now the story returns to the collector who discovered the record-breaking penny. After the auction, he refused interviews, choosing instead to let the coin speak for itself. The legend grew around him. Some called him lucky, others called him a visionary. He was, perhaps, both. For he understood that coins are more than currency, they are stories cast in metal, fragments of civilization that survive when everything else fades. The camera fades into a montage, a child receiving their first penny, a street vendor giving change, an elderly woman polishing old coins. The narrator's tone grows warm. Perhaps that is the true value of the 1993 cent, not the millions attached to its price tag, but the reminder that even the smallest things can carry infinite worth. Coins outlast people. They pass from hand to hand, generation to generation, silently witnessing the world change. A penny minted in 1993 could have traveled through hundreds of lives, crossed states, survived recessions, seen laughter and hardship, joy and sorrow. Somewhere in that journey lies humanity itself. As the final notes of the music fade. The film opens with a low metallic hum, the faint echo of footsteps across marble floors. The camera glides through the corridors of the United States Mint in Washington, D.C., past doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only," and into a softly lit archival chamber. Dust motes float in the beams of light. Shelves rise to the ceiling, stacked with ledgers, sketches, and steel dies preserved for generations. The narrator's voice enters again, calm and reverent, as if speaking from within the walls of history itself. Every coin ever struck by the mint begins here, in the silence of design and the discipline of record-keeping. Deep within these archives lies the story of how the 1993 Lincoln cent came to exist, not merely as currency but as a symbol of continuity. Each page in the mint's ledger tells a tale of precision: the quantity struck, the alloys used, the number of defective blanks rejected. In 1993, more than 14 billion cents were produced across the three mints, yet the secret of the $193 million coin hides somewhere among those billions, one speck of perfection hidden in an ocean of copper sheen. The camera drifts over an open book, its ink faded with time. The narrator continues, "Here are the test report's entries about die pressure adjustments, changes in strike temperature, and records of new plating baths introduced that year." To most, it's mere data, but to the trained eye, each figure whispers of decisions that could have changed history. A slight alteration in the alloy mix, a microscopic flaw in the die, a delay of mere seconds in the annealing furnace, any of these could give birth to a unique strike. Somewhere in these notes lies the genesis of the most valuable cent ever found. The music deepens, vibrating with the resonance of machinery and destiny. The camera cuts to a laboratory where technicians in white coats examine coins under microscopes. Their gloved hands rotate a specimen beneath a lens, digital screens reveal atomic-level surfaces glimmering like alien landscapes. The narrator explains, in recent years, metallurgical analysis has become the key to unlocking the truth behind rare coins. When the legendary 1993 cent was examined, scientists used electron microscopy and X-ray fluorescence to study its structure. What they discovered astonished everyone. Beneath the copper plating, the zinc core displayed an unusual density pattern, slightly higher than standard mint issue. Some experts proposed that this particular planchet was formed from an experimental batch of high-purity zinc tested only briefly in 1993 before being discontinued. Others theorized that the coin was a trial strike for a never-released commemorative composition. Whatever its origin, the result was a surface so smooth, so mirror-like, that even decades later it looked freshly struck. The narrator's tone lowers, thoughtful. Authenticity is the soul of numismatics. Without it, a coin is merely metal. The 1993 cent underwent months of scrutiny, microscopic photography, die pair matching, chemical profiling, and certification by every major grading service. In the end, no doubt remained. It was genuine, a perfect strike born by chance, preserved by luck, and exalted by history. The screen transitions to an interview montage. A veteran engraver speaks quietly, his hands stained with the marks of his trade. "When you carve Lincoln," he says, "you feel him watching. You can't rush it. You have to earn every curve of that face." The camera lingers on the glint of his tools. Another voice, that of a historian, joins in. Coins are small miracles of order. The 1993 cent is not valuable because it's rare, it's valuable because it reminds us that perfection can come from accident. The narrator resumes as we see footage of the Lincoln Memorial at sunrise, the columns glowing gold. Light catches on the marble as the narrator speaks. In the structure of the memorial and in the tiny reflection of that same memorial engraved on the coin lies a bridge between monument and money, between permanence and motion. The 1993 cent carries both the solidity of stone and the mobility of commerce. Now the camera travels across America. A family in Illinois empties a jar of coins onto a kitchen table. A young boy in California examines pennies with a magnifying glass. A retired machinist in Ohio labels his coin holders by hand. The narrator says softly, "These are the unseen archaeologists of modern civilization, the collectors who rescue history from oblivion one cent at a time. For them, every coin is a story waiting to be told." And among them spreads the legend of the 1993 cent worth $193 million, a story that fuels dreams and unites strangers through the quiet hope of discovery. The music changes, lighter now, as if breathing. The scene shifts to a lecture hall where a professor of economics addresses his students. "What gives anything its value?" he asks, holding up a penny. "Not metal. Not cost. Meaning. Meaning creates worth." The narrator builds on this thought. The 1993 cent has become more than a collectible, it's a mirror for our own beliefs about value. In its copper glow, we see how society measures significance not by size, not by function, but by story. The film moves to a reenactment, the night before the record breaking auction. The anonymous seller sits alone, the coin encased before him under a single lamp. Outside, city lights shimmer. His hand trembles slightly as he turns the holder over, reading the inscription, 1 cent, 1993 MS-70 red. The clock ticks. The narrator whispers, in a few hours, history will change. Cut to the auction room, crowded, buzzing with anticipation. The auctioneer's voice rises above the murmurs. Lot number 2117, certified 1993 Lincoln cent, flawless condition. The first bid, 10,000. Then 20. Then 100,000. The crowd leans forward. Cameras flash. Within minutes, the bidding leaps to millions. The narrator's tone grows intense, rhythmic, like the beating of a drum. 10 million, 50, 100, 150. At last, a final hand rises. The hammer falls. Sold, the auctioneer declares, for $193 million. Applause erupts. The narrator lets the sound fade into silence. A single penny, once handled by machines for less than a second, now valued beyond measure. The story spreads across headlines: astonishment, disbelief, fascination. Yet behind every exclamation lies a simple truth: the worth of this coin was not created by the auction, it was revealed by it. The scene transitions to the next morning. The buyer, an art collector with a passion for American heritage, stands before the coin in his private gallery. He doesn't smile, he simply watches the light move across its surface. The narrator says, to him, this cent is not an investment. It is a relic of intention, an object that connects art, history, and humanity. In its reflection, he sees the faces of countless people who once used pennies without thought, never realizing the poetry pressed into every curve. And now the documentary drifts into reflection. Shots of fields, rivers, old brick streets, and city skylines appear. The narrator's tone slows. A coin is the smallest form of architecture, a micro-monument designed to survive us all. When future archaeologists uncover the 1993 cent centuries from now, they will find not only metal but a fragment of the world we lived in. Our machines, our art, our ideals, our obsessions with perfection and permanence. The music softens to a single piano line. The narrator continues, value is a mirror. When we assign unimaginable worth to a penny, we are not elevating metal, we are confessing our hunger for meaning. We are saying that somewhere in the noise of progress, we still yearn for stories that endure. The camera moves once more to the archives, closing the circle. The same shelf, the same ledgers. A curator carefully replaces the book, dusts the cover, and locks the cabinet. The light fades. The narrator whispers, the files will sleep again, but the legend will not. Somewhere, another coin waits, perhaps already in someone's pocket, perhaps resting unnoticed in a jar by a window, ready to remind us once more that history hides in plain sight. The screen darkens completely. Only the faint copper glow of the penny remains, suspended in darkness like a tiny sun. The voice concludes, quiet but certain, the 1993 1-cent coin born of chance, perfected by time, crowned by destiny. A single spark of metal that taught the world the meaning of worth. The glow fades. A final line appears, to be continued. The screen fades in from black. A single ray of light breaks through the darkness, illuminating the small copper coin once again. It rests on a velvet cloth beneath a beam of gold. The soundscape is gentle, the quiet ticking of a clock, a distant hum of city life, and the low, resonant tone of a cello swelling beneath the silence. The narrator's voice returns, steady, almost like the whisper of time itself continuing its tale. Every age leaves behind its relics. For some, it is stone monuments. For others, parchment, art, or music. But for modern civilization, it is often coins, small, resilient, mass-produced, yet surviving long after the people who made and spent them have vanished. The 1993 Lincoln cent is one such relic. A single coin, seemingly simple, carrying the weight of an entire nation's memory. The voice softens, contemplative. It has been said that money is the language of trust. Every coin ever struck represents an unspoken agreement between a government and its people, to promise that this piece of metal has value, that it symbolizes stability, that it connects all who use it. Yet when a coin like the 1993 cent transcends its face value and becomes worth $193 million, it no longer speaks of economics. It speaks of something deeper, of belief, of rarity, of the strange power that human emotion gives to inanimate things. The scene shifts to a slow-motion montage, coins tumbling from a hand, spinning in air, falling onto a wooden surface. The sound of their clinking fills the room. The narrator continues, the penny has always been underestimated. In a world where larger denominations command more attention, the humble cent remains a quiet witness to daily life. It is the first coin a child learns to recognize, the first saved in a jar, the first tossed into a wishing fountain. It has seen more hands than any other piece of currency in America's history. And yet, in that humility lies its strength. The camera pans across old black and white photographs, children during the Great Depression saving pennies in jars, soldiers in World War II keeping them as lucky charms, factory workers counting them out on payday. The narrator says, each penny tells the same story, that hope is built 1 cent at a time. Now the shot changes to a modern city street. Neon lights flicker, cars pass, digital screens flash. In this new age, coins have almost vanished. People swipe cards, scan phones, trade invisible currencies that exist only as numbers on servers. And yet, somewhere in the depths of purses, drawers, and pockets, pennies remain stubbornly real, defiantly tangible. The narrator's tone deepens. Perhaps that's why the 1993 cent holds such power. In a world becoming less physical, it reminds us that meaning once had weight, that trust was once made of metal. The music rises gently, piano and strings intertwining like memory and melody. The film now takes us to a collector's study lined with mahogany shelves. Glass cases display coins from every era: Roman denarii, British sovereigns, early American half-cents. The camera moves slowly toward a display case where, under perfect lighting, the 1993 Lincoln cent gleams like an ember in the dark. The narrator continues, this coin sits not among its peers, but above them. It is a reminder that even the smallest fragment of history can command reverence. A historian's voice echoes faintly in the background. Coins are humanity's fingerprints on time. They prove we existed, that we dreamed, that we built systems to outlast ourselves. The narrator responds, weaving thought into poetry. If that is true, then the 1993 penny is not just a fingerprint, it is a heartbeat, the pulse of a nation still echoing through its smallest symbol. The camera fades to scenes of the Lincoln Memorial again, tourists walking up its steps, children running their fingers along the marble columns. The narrator's tone softens with reverence. Abraham Lincoln never saw his face on a coin. Yet the decision to place him there in 1909 was more than artistic. It was spiritual. It turned a simple cent into a vessel of remembrance. His image, now struck billions of times, has traveled further than any statue or portrait. It has crossed oceans, rested in pockets on every continent, carried silently as a symbol of equality and endurance. The narrator pauses, letting the gravity of those words sink in. Then continues, in 1993, as the presses roared and billions of Lincoln cents rolled into circulation, no one could have guessed that among them, one would achieve mythical status. But destiny often hides in plain sight. The screen transitions to a dimly lit museum vault, where curators speak in hushed tones. One holds the $193 million cent under magnification. The voiceover resumes, the coin is flawless, no scratches, no fingerprints, no signs of circulation. Under the microscope, the copper plating shimmers like a galaxy of red and gold. Its perfection defies time, defies chance. To collectors, it's more than rarity. It's a moment captured, a split second of absolute harmony between machine, metal, and man. The music swells again, a slow orchestral rise that fills the silence. The narrator says quietly, when people hear that a penny is worth hundreds of millions, they laugh. How can that be? It's only a cent. But value, true value, is not a number. It's a story that captures imagination, a piece of history that refuses to fade. That's what collectors understand, that behind every coin lies a heartbeat of time. The film shifts to interviews, voices layered softly over each other. A young collector, it's not just money, it's art. An older one, it's a bridge between generations. A scholar, it's proof that beauty can be born from utility. The narrator interjects, and perhaps that is the greatest irony. The coin that once represented the smallest measure of value has now become one of the most priceless objects on earth. The camera moves through time-lapse scenes, the coin displayed in exhibitions, photographed under lights, whispered about in forums and documentaries. The narrator says, in every generation, a single object captures the human spirit: a painting, a diamond, a relic. For this age, it was a coin. A 1-cent piece from 1993 that turned into a symbol of wonder. The screen fades to a montage of faces, artists, historians, schoolchildren, and workers, all different, all connected by this small copper disc. The narrator's tone turns reflective, almost philosophical. What does it mean that a single cent can unite people across backgrounds, beliefs, and borders? Perhaps because it speaks a universal truth, that greatness doesn't depend on size or power, but on endurance and purpose. The music quiets to a near silence. The camera focuses once again on Lincoln's engraved face. The narrator continues, look closely at his eyes, calm, forward-looking, unflinching. For over a century, that same face has watched over the nation, silently reminding it of justice, unity, and resilience. In every coin, his legacy breathes. And in the 1993 cent, his spirit seems almost alive, as though the metal remembers his struggle and triumph. The scene shifts to a philosophical monologue, the tone almost poetic. The narrator says slowly, "Coins are more than money. They are our collective memories cast in metal. They hear our laughter and sorrow, our wars and peace, our dreams and disappointments. They pass silently through time, carrying stories we forget we told." The 1993 cent, that single shimmering fragment of copper and zinc, carries the story of a nation's faith in itself, the belief that even from the smallest things, greatness can arise. The music swells again, strings rising toward a crescendo as images flash by: the first Lincoln penny of 1909, the transition to copper-plated zinc in 1982, the mint presses of 1993 roaring to life. Each frame connects past and present. The narrator says, history is not a line, it's a circle. The 1993 cent connects the century of Lincoln's birth to the dawn of the digital age, the bridge between the tangible and the virtual, between metal and memory. The light dims. The camera returns to the collector's gallery. The rare coin sits under its glass dome, motionless yet alive with reflections. The narrator's voice becomes hushed. Someday, perhaps long after we're gone, someone will find another like it, another perfect penny that slipped through time unnoticed. And when they do, the world will once again remember this story, and the legend will grow. The music fades into the sound of soft rain against a window. The narrator concludes quietly, in the end, the 1993 Lincoln cent is not just a coin. It is a reminder that history can hide in the smallest corners, that perfection can be born from accident, and that even the humblest things can become eternal. The black screen remains for a moment longer, allowing silence to settle like dust after a storm. Then, softly, the sound of a heartbeat begins, faint, rhythmic, steady. A dim light flickers over a close-up of the 1993 Lincoln cent once again. The narrator's voice emerges from the quiet, rich with introspection. Every legend, the voice says slowly, begins as an ordinary truth. The heartbeat fades into a low hum, the distant murmur of minting presses, the echo of metal striking metal. The image shifts, the camera travels through time, descending deep into the heart of the U.S. Mint in Denver, 1993. Sparks fly. Machines thunder. Sheets of zinc roll through the cutters, and the copper plating gleams under fluorescent light. Each coin that falls into the bin is identical, perfect, yet ordinary. Billions of them, but somewhere among those countless strikes, something happened, something that time has not explained. The rarest of them all was born in that storm of motion. A flawless coin, untouched by error, unscarred by circulation. Its surface glowed with a purity no human eye could have predicted. It was as if destiny had chosen this one cent to defy logic, to survive untouched through 3 decades, and to emerge as a symbol of perfection. The coin now worth $193 million. The narrator's voice deepens. How does something so common become sacred? How does a coin, designed for the smallest transactions, transcend into legend? A faint melody begins, a single piano note repeating like the sound of a ticking clock. The visuals change to microscopic footage, the coin's surface under magnification. The grains of metal glisten like a red desert under sunlight. Each ridge, each letter in "In God We Trust," stands sharp and proud. The narrator continues, every line, every curve, is a work of geometry and art. The designer's hand, Victor David Brenner, though long gone, still lives here, in every contour of Lincoln's immortal profile. He could not have imagined, when he first sculpted that face in 1909, that his creation would outlive empires, wars, and revolutions. And that a century later, in 1993, his design would strike once more, to become something eternal. The screen transitions to a reenactment, an actor portraying Brenner in his studio, working in dim candlelight over Lincoln's bust. His hands move carefully, chiseling, shaping, refining. The narrator whispers, he carved not a man, but an idea. The idea that freedom has a face. The shot fades back to the coin, glowing faintly under a museum light. Then, a shift in tone, suspense begins to creep in. But behind every masterpiece lies mystery. Behind every legend, a question that refuses to fade. A historian's voice echoes faintly, archival style. In early 1993, a series of experimental copper blanks were reportedly struck before the full zinc production began. Officially, those prototypes were destroyed. Unofficially, no one knows. The music grows tense, low strings, deep brass, like the pulse of discovery. The narrator continues, some say the $193 million coin was one of those rare prototypes, created with nearly pure copper, a return to the coin's origins, a tribute to history. Others claim it bears microscopic markings unseen on any other 1993 issue, as though an unknown hand altered it, ever so slightly. The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere between science and myth. The camera zooms into the coin again, light sweeping across Lincoln's cheek, the faint reflection forming the illusion of movement. Is it possible, the narrator asks, that a simple scent could carry secrets of the mint itself? That within its surface lies the fingerprint of time, an unintentional masterpiece born of chance, silence, and precision? The film shifts to a different scene now, the archives of the mint, rows upon rows of dusty ledgers, yellowed pages filled with numbers and notes. The narrator's voice lowers to a whisper. Records from the Denver and Philadelphia mints show normal production runs in 1993. Billions of coins. Yet among the sea of identical strikes, one vanished from documentation, unaccounted for. A single blank missing from the registry. No one noticed then. But decades later, it resurfaced in the hands of a private collector, gleaming as if it had never known time. The camera slowly pans across the ledger pages, stopping on a faint, smudged line, Lot D 1429, missing specimen. The screen flickers, static fills the frame for a moment, and then, silence, the narrator resumes. When the coin was rediscovered, it was not found in a bank vault, nor a collector's safe. It was found in the most unexpected place, hidden inside an old wooden box at an estate auction in rural Kentucky. No one knew where it came from, who had placed it there, or why. Yet its preservation was absolute. No oxidation. No marks. As though the coin had been frozen in time. The soundscape becomes ethereal echoes, wind, faint whispers. The camera shows the coin resting in a gloved hand. The narrator's tone grows softer, more reverent. Some say it was luck. Others call it destiny. But perhaps, like all things that endure, it was both. The scene changes again, a philosopher's study, candlelight flickering on a bronze bust of Lincoln. Books scattered across the table. The narrator continues, there is a theory that objects of great significance draw energy from belief itself. That when enough people admire, desire, or dream of them, they begin to exist on another plane, no longer just metal or stone, but living symbols. Perhaps that is what happened to this coin. Perhaps the 1993 cent became what we needed it to be, a miracle of memory. The music swells again, soft violins, a melancholic horn. The film shows montages of collectors visiting museums, staring through glass at the coin. Some bow their heads slightly, as if before a relic. The narrator continues, to those who see it, the coin is more than art. It is a mirror reflecting our obsession with perfection, our yearning to preserve time, our desire to find meaning in the smallest of things. A child is shown dropping a regular penny into a fountain, making a wish. The narrator murmurs, every wish begins with a penny. And perhaps, somewhere, one wish came true. The camera fades to sepia tones, flashbacks of Lincoln himself, the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, the growth of America. The coin's face overlays these images as the music turns grand and cinematic. The voiceover, Lincoln once said, whatever you are, be a good one. In the 1993 cent, that simple truth lives on. A coin designed for everyday life became, against all odds, the greatest of its kind, good, pure, and eternal. The pacing slows. The music quiets to a single violin. The coin spins in slow motion across a table, landing with a soft metallic sound. The narrator whispers, it began as metal. It became legend. And now, it is history. The light fades to near darkness again. The only illumination left is the coin's faint reflection. The narrator closes part 5 with a tone of wonder and gravity. Some stories are written in books. Others are written in stars. But a rare few, the truly timeless ones, are written in copper and zinc. The 1993 Lincoln cent is one such story. It carries within it the entire heartbeat of a nation, from the forge of industry to the dream of eternity. It is a coin, yes, but also a reminder that even the smallest creation can outshine the grandest monument when time chooses to remember. The screen goes black. Only the faint ticking of a clock remains. Then, one last whisper in 1993. 1 cent endless worth. Fade out. Darkness. Silence. Then a single note from a piano, soft, distant, fading in like memory. The screen blows gently with an image of Earth from space, slowly rotating, the continents illuminated by city lights. The camera drifts closer, descending through the clouds, until we see a small museum in Washington, D.C. A crowd has gathered inside. Children point, tourists whisper, flashes of cameras light up the glass display case. Inside it, gleaming like a captured sunrise, rests the 1993 Lincoln cent. The narrator's voice, calm and resonant, cuts through the hum. It began as 1 cent, a coin struck by the millions, meant to pass quietly from hand to hand. But over time, it crossed borders and generations. What was once ordinary became extraordinary. What was once forgotten became immortal. The music rises gently, swelling with strings and choir. The film transitions to a montage, people from around the world reading about the coin online, newspaper headlines flashing across the screen in multiple languages, the penny worth $193 million, the American miracle coin, how a cent became priceless. The narrator continues, across oceans and time zones, the world paused to look at this small circle of copper and zinc, and in it, they saw themselves. A symbol of persistence. A story of chance. A reflection of human hope. Cut to interviews, a collector in Tokyo polishing his coins, a historian in London analyzing minting errors, a young student in Pakistan sketching the coin's design in a notebook. Each speaks with wonder, and their voices overlap softly beneath the narration. A Tokyo collector. To hold history this small, it's like holding time itself. That historian, it is not just money, it is a message. It says that even the smallest piece can define an era. The student, I draw it because it reminds me that greatness can come from anywhere. The narrator's voice flows through them, weaving the message together. Around the world, people began to see the Lincoln cent not as currency, but as a compass pointing toward what humanity values most: endurance, integrity, and remembrance. The scene shifts to the coin's surface, magnified again. The camera moves across its ridges and inscriptions. In God We Trust, Liberty, 1993. Each word gleams under light like sacred text. The narrator continues, those words are more than design. They are declarations. In God we trust, a promise of faith. Liberty, a reminder of struggle. 1993, a date in time, forever sealed. The music deepens, low cello, heartbeat like percussion. The visuals show coins being struck at mints, then scattered across maps of the world. The narrator says, coins travel farther than we do. They pass through unknown hands, cross borders, witness lives we will never meet. They survive wars, recessions, revolutions. They listen to history unfold, silently, without judgment. The 1993 cent has seen it all, and yet, it remains unchanged. The image fades into the hand of a collector holding the coin with gloves. He raises it slowly toward the light. The copper glows red gold. The narrator's tone turns reflective. In the age of digital money and vanishing cash, the coin is a survivor. A relic of touch, of weight, of presence. When the world turned to numbers on screens, this small piece of metal whispered, "Remember me." Now, the film transitions into memory, slow-motion shots of people using coins in daily life, a child paying for candy, an old man tipping a musician, a woman saving spare change in a jar. The narrator continues softly, every coin once had purpose. It carried stories of families, of dreams, of everyday miracles. But some, through fate or fortune, rise above their purpose. The 1993 cent was one such coin, it became a beacon. The music grows cinematic now, horns joining the strings as the scene cuts to a grand auction hall in New York. The narrator's voice gains rhythm and weight. When it appeared at auction, the world held its breath. Collectors, investors, historians, all watching, all waiting. The bidding began at $1. Then 10. Then 1,000. And before long, it climbed beyond comprehension. When the hammer finally fell at $193 million, silence filled the room. It was not the sound of disbelief, it was awe. The camera pans slowly across faces in the crowd, astonishment, joy, even tears. The narrator whispers, for a single cent to reach such value is not an act of wealth, it is an act of wonder. Humanity, for that brief moment, remembered how to marvel again. The screen fades to black and white footage of coins being minted in 1909, the year the Lincoln penny was first created. The narrator continues, it began with an idea to honor a man who united a divided nation. Over a century later, that same idea continues to echo through this coin. The 1993 cent is not just metal, it is memory, molded into perfection. A shot of Lincoln's statue in the memorial appears, light spilling across his marble face. The narrator's tone softens, reverent, he sits there still, watching over his people. His gaze eternal, his presence unshaken. And on every coin that bears his image, his spirit travels, whispering across generations, equality, humility, courage. The music quiets. The camera zooms close to Lincoln's engraved face on the coin. The narrator whispers, the same face, still watching. Still waiting. Still speaking. A soft wind sound begins. The screen transitions to footage of deserts, oceans, mountains, cities, a world united by the smallest artifact. The narrator says, it's strange, isn't it? How one small coin, no larger than a thumbnail, could remind the world of everything it has forgotten: patience, craftsmanship, history, and belief. In that circle of copper lies humanity's reflection, flawed, beautiful, enduring. The pace slows again, a moment of silence. Then, faintly, the sound of coins dropping echoes like distant rain. The narrator continues, in time, most coins fade. They tarnish, corrode, disappear. But some resist decay not because of the metal they're made from, but because of the meaning they carry. The 1993 Lincoln cent is one such coin. It refuses to vanish. The film shows time-lapse imagery, decades passing in seconds. Cities rise, technology evolves, paper becomes screens, and yet the coin remains. The narrator's voice deepens, long after banks have turned to algorithms, long after paper has vanished, this coin will still glimmer in the dark, a relic of touch in a world of touchscreens. The music swells, choral voices join the orchestra. The imagery turns cosmic, the coin spinning through space like a planet, reflecting light, timeless. The narrator whispers, perhaps one day, when our descendants look back, they will find it again. Buried beneath the soil, untouched by centuries, shining still, the last voice of a vanished civilization. And when they do, they will know who we were. Because our story, our dreams, our symbols, will live in this small circle of light. The sound fades to the crackle of an old radio. The narrator speaks softly, almost like a closing thought, a penny. A single cent. The smallest measure of value. And yet, for humanity, it has become one of the greatest treasures. Because in the end, worth is not measured by size or number, but by the stories we choose to remember. The music fades completely. Only the faint echo of a heartbeat remains, slow, steady, endless. The camera holds the final image, the 1993 Lincoln cent resting on a black velvet cloth, glowing softly as light fades around it. The narrator whispers the final words of part 6 of 1 cent. One story. One legacy that outlived time itself. Fade to black. A long silence fills the screen. Then, from the dark, a faint glow returns, the same soft halo that once surrounded the 1993 Lincoln cent. The camera moves slowly closer. Dust particles drift like stars in space. A single breath of air disturbs them, and the narrator's voice returns, low and resonant, as if emerging from memory itself. Every artifact, the voice says, is a reflection of those who made it. And every reflection changes when the world looks back. The music begins, a gentle hum of cello and piano, the same motif heard earlier, now deeper, slower, wiser. The lens turns from the coin to the faces of the people who gaze at it behind glass. A child leans forward, eyes wide. An old veteran nods quietly. A teacher whispers to her students. For a moment, the generations share the same heartbeat. The narrator continues, what they see is not the coin. They see themselves, their work, their patience, their hope. They see proof that something small can outlast despair. They see the echo of hands that shaped a nation. The screen cuts to an aerial view of wheat fields under morning light, endless gold stretching to the horizon. The breeze ripples through the stalks like a tide. The narrator's tone becomes poetic. Before the coin bore the memorial, before the zinc and copper alloy, there were wheat cents. Simple, honest, carved with ears of grain. They spoke of harvest, of labor, of nourishment. And even now, when we hold a modern cent, that spirit whispers through it that a people's worth is measured not by wealth, but by what they grow together. A soft chime rings as the scene changes to city streets at dusk. Commuters hurry, lights flicker on, traffic hums. A penny lies on the sidewalk, half buried in dust. The camera lingers on it as the narrator murmurs, billions of coins have been lost to pavements, to time, to indifference. Yet each one once carried a story. How many dreams were exchanged for a cent? How many memories bought and sold without notice? The 1993 cent endures because someone noticed, because someone decided it mattered. The music rises, a faint choir joining the strings. The coin now appears on a rotating pedestal in a dark gallery, a single beam of light bathing it in fire-red glow. The narrator whispers, in every age, humanity crowns its symbols, stones, paintings, books, inventions. The coin is one of ours. Not for its power to buy, but for its power to connect. Touch it, and you touch everyone who ever held it. Look at it, and you look through time. The screen shows flashes of moments, a soldier in 1944 flipping a penny for luck, a child in 1970 pressing one into wet concrete, a scientist in 2025 keeping one on his desk for focus. Their hands overlap through editing, a cascade of fingers passing the same small circle through decades. The narrator, objects like this are anchors in the river of time. They keep us from drifting too far from what we were. The 1993 Lincoln cent is such an anchor, small, unassuming, but immovable in meaning. Now the tone turns inward, meditative. The camera lingers on Lincoln's engraved eye. The narrator's voice softens, he does not blink. He never has. Through war, through peace, through the noise of modern life, he remains. He reminds us that freedom must be watched over, that unity must be minted anew in every generation. The music hushes. The screen fades to a dim light glinting off the coin's rim. And perhaps that is why this single cent commands reverence beyond its metal. It is not the rarity alone that gives it value. It is the story it holds, the belief that something so small could still matter in a vast, distracted world. A slow pan over landscapes, deserts, forests, oceans. The narrator continues, when archaeologists one day uncover our civilization, they will find our devices corroded, our screens black, our words faded. But they will find coins. They always do. And when they pick one up, perhaps this one, they will know we once believed in liberty, in trust, in worth measured not by gold but by promise. The score swells again, light cascading over the imagery like dawn. The narrator's voice grows stronger. We are all part of the same minting, pressed by time, worn by use, given meaning by what we endure. The coin and the human are not so different. Both start bright. Both gather marks. Both, if preserved with care, can outlast everything. A pause. The music fades to a heartbeat again. The narrator lowers to a whisper, so when you next find a penny, any penny, don't overlook it. Hold it for a second. Feel its weight. Somewhere within that copper glint is the echo of the 1993 cent, the legend that taught us to see wonder in what we call small. The camera closes in for one last shot, the coin's surface fills the entire frame, the light trembling across Lincoln's profile until the features blur into pure radiance. The narrator breathes the final words of part 7. 1 cent. One life. One enduring faith that nothing ordinary ever truly is. The screen fades completely to black. The heartbeat stops. Only silence remains, vast, peaceful, infinite. Blackness lingers for a heartbeat, then the first sound returns, a soft wind rising through empty halls, the whisper of time moving forward. Slowly, the screen brightens. A museum corridor, quiet and silver-lit. The camera glides past glass cases until it stops once more before the 1993 Lincoln cent. The light from above shimmers across its copper face like the first morning sun touching an old city. The narrator's voice enters again, gentle but certain. Stories do not end, they evolve. Legends do not sleep, they echo. What began as one coin now moves through minds and hands across the world, not as currency, but as a conversation about value itself. The soundtrack swells, violins and the low hum of voices blending like memory. The lens widens to reveal a lecture hall filled with students studying numismatics, history, and design. The professor gestures toward an image of the coin projected on a screen. Each face glows in the reflection of its bronze light. Every generation must decide, the narrator continues, what it will treasure. Gold fades, paper burns, but symbols survive. And this 1 cent piece, this fragment of copper and zinc, has become a symbol for something beyond money, the endurance of meaning. Cut to shots of people around the world, a woman restoring ancient coins in Rome, a boy in Lagos polishing a handful of change, a craftsman in Lahore engraving new designs inspired by the Pennies lines. Their movements are rhythmic, connected, almost sacred. The narrator, the 1993 cent inspired a new wave of artistry. Not because of its price, but because of its story. Artists, economists, teachers, they saw in it proof that perfection could be found in the ordinary, that the smallest artifact could carry the weight of a civilization's heart. A quiet piano motif returns. The scene shifts to an old man sitting by a window, turning a regular penny between his fingers. He remembers his father giving him one just like it, the narrator says softly. He remembers the feel of the metal, warm from another hand. In that moment, history lives again. The film cuts to the coin's reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial gleaming. The narrator's voice slows, look at those columns. Each one stands for unity. Each one carved to hold the roof of remembrance. And between them, in the shadows, sits the figure of Lincoln, small, humble, but unbroken. That is the image we pass down to our children. That is the idea the 1993 cent still protects. Music builds, layered with choir. The visuals expand into a montage, classroom walls adorned with enlarged pennies, museum visitors sketching the coin, a computer-generated model spinning through holographic light. The narrator's voice steadies into a tone of hope across continents. This tiny circle became a classroom, a mirror, a prayer. It taught patience to collectors, wonder to children, discipline to makers, humility to dreamers. A pause. The music fades, replaced by soft footsteps. The camera shows a young girl entering the museum alone, stopping before the glass case. She presses her hand to the surface. Her reflection merges with the coin's glow. In every age, the narrator murmurs, someone new must rediscover what we once believed. For her, it begins here. A story she didn't live, but now inherits. The imagery drifts outward again, skylines, rivers, hands exchanging coins in slow motion. The narrator's tone deepens of the 1993 cent reminds us that progress and memory are not enemies. They are companions. The future needs the past to know itself. The smallest things, the overlooked, the forgotten, keep the world human. Thunder rumbles faintly. Rain begins to fall over the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Drops strike puddles, ripples expand. The camera follows one ripple until it fills the screen, becoming the coin's edge once more. Water, metal, time, each leaves its mark, the narrator says. But some marks never fade. The 1993 Lincoln cent is such a mark. It has turned from money to myth, from myth to meaning. The music swells, slow, luminous chords. The narrator continues, people chase treasures for fortune. But the truest treasures are those that change how we see the world. This coin changed us. It taught us that even the smallest piece of matter can carry infinite spirit. That value is not assigned, it is discovered. The screen now shows the coin reflected in a child's eye. Perhaps that, the narrator whispers, is the final miracle, not that a cent became worth millions, but that it made us pause long enough to feel wonder again. Silence returns. The coin glows in the dark, alone, timeless. The narrator concludes part 8 in a quiet, almost prayerful voice. History turns, nations rise and fade, but somewhere, in a quiet room, a single cent still gleams. A reminder that greatness is not loud. It is steady. It endures. 1 cent, 1 lesson, 1 eternity. Fade to black. The screen remains black for several seconds, silent, weightless, as though the film itself is taking a breath. Then, slowly, the faint hum of the earth begins, a low vibration, the sound of wind through open fields, the pulse of unseen life. A single light flickers into view, the same beam that once illuminated the 1993 cent. The narrator's voice returns, soft and steady. Every story, no matter how small, carries within it the pattern of the universe. The 1993 Lincoln cent began as molten metal, shaped by human hands, pressed with a face that has seen centuries. And now it has become more than an artifact, it has become a reflection of us all. The image dissolves into molten copper swirling in a furnace. Sparks rise, dancing in slow motion like stars being born. In the beginning, the narrator continues, there was only heat and motion. From chaos came order. From formlessness came design. The coin's creation mirrors our own, born from fire, cooled by time, shaped by intention. The molten copper cools into blanks. Machines press them into coins. Thousands fall into bins, clinking like rain. Then, the frame slows to a single coin, the 1993 cent, catching the light. Among billions, the narrator says, one would someday be found, examined, revered. Why this one? Because meaning chooses its own vessel. Because the universe hides greatness where we least expect it. The music swells again, layered with deep drums, like a heartbeat. The visuals expand, the Lincoln Memorial gleaming under storm clouds, city lights flickering across continents, hands exchanging coins in every corner of the world. The narrator's tone rises with reverence. Think of it, the same metal that built the tools of our ancestors now rests in the palm of a child. The same design that crossed decades now whispers to a new age. This is more than history. This is continuity, the unbroken thread that binds the human story. The scene cuts to collectors and historians gathered at an international exhibition. Cameras flash. The rare 1993 cent sits in the center beneath crystal glass. People circle it as if around a relic. They come from everywhere, the narrator says. Not to buy, but to bear witness. For they see not the coin, but the proof that faith and detail and patience can transcend time. A close-up of an elderly man speaking quietly to a journalist, his eyes glisten as he recalls the first penny he ever held as a child. His voice fades into the narrator's tone. He remembers when a cent could buy candy, when its color meant hope, when its weight felt like a promise. Now, it stands as a bridge between what we were and what we still wish to be. Soft strings return. The screen fills with shifting light, copper, gold, and deep crimson. The narrator speaks slower now, as though revealing a secret. Every civilization leaves behind its echoes, temples, letters, tools, coins. And though kings fall and empires turn to dust, the small circle of metal endures, carrying the whispers of our humanity. A montage unfolds, coins buried in ancient soil, divers recovering treasure from the sea, a scientist scanning the 1993 cent under magnification. The voice continues, the scratches, the wear, the patina, they are the wrinkles of time itself. They tell us that beauty is not in perfection, but in endurance. That worth is not found in price, but in persistence. The camera drifts upward through shafts of sunlight to reveal the vastness of space. Stars shimmer like scattered coins across the dark. We are, each of us, travelers through the same cosmic mint, the narrator murmurs. Forged by pressure, marked by experience, made luminous by what we survive. The imagery turns almost dreamlike, coins floating in slow motion, merging with stars, until one glows brighter than the rest, the 1993 cent. Its surface becomes a mirror reflecting faces, cities, and time itself. Perhaps that is why this coin story feels eternal, the voice says. Because in its smallness, we see infinity. Because in its silence, we hear the voice of history. A soft bell tolls. The camera returns to the museum, where the coin rests once more in its glass case. Night has fallen outside. The lights dim, leaving only the glow of the cent itself. The narrator's final lines for part 9 flow like a benediction. Some call it luck. Some call it rarity. But to those who understand, it is something deeper, a promise that even the smallest act of creation can ripple across centuries. The 1993 cent was never meant to be priceless. Yet it became so, because humanity needed a reminder that meaning still exists, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be seen. The music fades to a single piano note. The screen darkens until only a faint copper glow remains, the last breath of light before the closing act. Darkness holds for a long moment. The screen is silent except for a faint wind, almost a sigh. Then, slowly, the image returns, dawn spilling over the marble steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The air glows gold. Birds circle above the monument as the city wakes. The narrator's voice enters quietly, almost a whisper, morning again. The same light that once touched the mint now touches this stone. Decades have passed, yet the story remains. What was once a coin is now a legend. What was once ordinary is now eternal. The camera drifts down the steps, moving toward a single hand resting on a railing. It's the young girl from part 8, now older, holding a worn penny between her fingers. She turns it toward the sun, and the copper flares like fire in her hand. The voice says, "The world begins again." A reminder that nothing ends, it only changes shape. A low orchestral theme rises, strings and piano blending into a slow heartbeat. The scene fades through time, the coin passing from hand to hand, from collector to student, from parent to child. Each exchange softer, slower, more luminous. The narrator continues. The 1993 cent taught us that value is not printed, it is earned. It is carried in memory, in patience, in the invisible work of every generation that believed in something lasting. The images widen, farmers bending over golden fields, machinists pressing new coins, scientists scanning fragments of the past. Light ripples across their faces, the metal changes, the mint evolves, but the idea remains that worth is built, not declared. That the simplest object can hold the soul of an age. The music grows fuller now, a quiet swell of choir beneath the strings. Once, it was worth a cent. Then, a fortune. Now, it is beyond price. For the coin has become a mirror, reflecting everything we hope to be: honest, enduring, indivisible. The screen shifts to black and white footage, Lincoln's statue, the Capitol dome, crowded streets from long ago. The narrator's tone deepens, reverent, he still watches us, the face on the coin, carved in patience, minted in belief. He reminds us that freedom, like copper, must be tended or it will fade. That unity, like the coin, gains beauty through its wear. The imagery fades to the museum again. The coin rests beneath its glass dome. Visitors pass by in quiet awe. One child presses a note against the glass, "Thank you for lasting." The narrator breathes, history is not about kings or wars. It is about moments like this, one heart reaching for another across time. The music thins to a single violin. The light softens until only the coin remains visible, floating in darkness, glowing like a sun of memory. The final words come slowly, each one wrapped in silence, so the 1993 cent endures. Not as metal, but as message. A reminder that greatness hides in the smallest things. That even a single spark of faith can light the centuries. A pause. Then, softly, 1 cent. One nation. One endless story. The music blooms into its full orchestral finale, brass, choir, and strings sweeping together as the screen fills with radiant light. The coin's surface expands until it becomes pure gold, dissolving into sunlight. The narrator's last whisper drifts through that light: we are all coins in the hand of time, marked, spent, remembered. And if we shine for even a moment, then we have done enough. Fade to white silence, then, faintly, the sound of a single coin falling onto wood, clink echoing into infinity. The screen fades to black.